My name is Jonathan, and I never imagined that a day I had anticipated with so much excitement, joy, and pride could turn into the most shocking, bewildering, and unforgettable moment of my life. Because it all began early in the morning of my daughter Emma's wedding, a day she had dreamed about since she was a little girl, carefully planning every detail, from the lace on her dress to the arrangement of flowers at the altar. And as I watched her bustle around the house, checking on her bridesmaids, making sure everyone had their bouquets, her excitement almost tangible, I felt a swell of pride, a mixture of nostalgia and happiness, remembering her first steps, her first words, the countless birthdays, holidays, and ordinary afternoons we had shared, and yet a small knot of unease had begun to form in my chest earlier that week when I had overheard a whispered phone call between her and someone I didn't recognize. The tone of secrecy in her voice unlike anything I had heard before, and I brushed it off, telling myself that young love often comes with moments of privacy, and that perhaps she was simply coordinating with a friend or one of her bridesmaids. But as the ceremony began and we all took our seats in the beautifully decorated garden, the knot grew tighter, an inexplicable sense of tension I couldn't quite place, and I tried to shake it off, focusing on the music, the decorations, the smiling faces of family and friends, the crisp sunlight reflecting off the white petals. And then came the moment Emma was supposed to walk down the aisle with her father, me, and I felt a lump in my throat as I saw her step onto the grass. Radiant, smiling, and yet in that same instant, I noticed her hand trembling slightly, a nervousness I had never seen before. And I realized something was different, something unspoken hanging in the air. A secret poised to shatter the perfect facade of the day. And as the officiant began speaking, I noticed a man standing at the edge of the crowd. Someone who looked entirely unfamiliar, sharply dressed, but there was a presence about him. A familiarity in the way he scanned the audience, his eyes locking on Emma. And a chill ran down my spine as I instinctively realized that he was not just a stranger, that this presence was going to change everything. And as the ceremony progressed, I tried to focus on the vows, on the beautiful words my daughter had written, the promises of love, support, and partnership, but my mind kept drifting back to that man, to the unanswered questions swirling in my head, to the sense of unease I could not shake. And then, as Emma began to speak, thanking everyone for coming, acknowledging friends and family, her words were poised, elegant, and moving, and I could feel tears threatening to spill from my eyes. And then, in the middle of her speech, her gaze shifted, and she motioned subtly to someone behind me, and my heart sank, because it was him, the man at the edge of the crowd. And before I could comprehend what was happening, he walked forward, confident, composed, and with a small, almost sly smile, handed her a small box. And Emma, without hesitation, took it, opened it, and the gasp that escaped the crowd, the murmur of confusion, the sudden tension that crackled in the air was like nothing I had ever experienced, because inside the box was a ring, another ring, a symbol of a love I had never known existed. A secret relationship that my daughter had kept hidden from everyone. From me, from her new husband, a betrayal wrapped in joy. A shock that left the entire family stunned. Frozen, mouths open, hearts racing, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't comprehend how my sweet, innocent daughter could have kept such a thing from us, and the officiant paused, confused, unsure how to proceed as Emma stood there, her eyes shining with tears, speaking softly, explaining that this man, Michael, had been in her life for over a year, that their relationship had grown in secret, that she had been torn between her love for him and her desire to follow through with the wedding she had planned. And the revelation spread through the crowd like wildfire. Faces contorted with shock, whispers cascading from one person to the next. Disbelief, anger, hurt, and a strange, electric mix of emotions vibrating through the air. And my son-in-law Alex, who had been standing at the altar, looked utterly dumbfounded, his jaw slack, eyes wide. And I could see the betrayal, confusion, and pain etched on his face, as he tried to process the fact that the woman he had promised to love and cherish had a secret, a hidden love, a life he knew nothing about. And in that moment, chaos erupted, voices raised, questions shouted, accusations flying, and yet Emma stood firm. Tears streaming down her face, explaining, pleading, trying to make everyone understand, trying to justify the secret that had now exposed itself in the most public way possible, and I felt torn, my heart breaking for my daughter, my son-in-law, and the family who had gathered to celebrate what was supposed to be a joyful occasion. A day of happiness now transformed into a maelstrom of revelation, confrontation and raw emotion, and as I stepped forward, trying to mediate, to calm the situation, my mind racing for solutions, for words that could ease the tension, I realized that this was bigger than any one person, bigger than anger or hurt, bigger than the day itself, and that somehow, this secret had been living in the shadows for so long, patiently waiting for this moment to be exposed. And as Emma's voice trembled, I could see her guilt, her fear, her desperation to be understood, to be accepted, and yet the room was divided. Some members of the family recoiling in shock, others whispering in disbelief. And I knew that whatever decisions were made in that instant would reverberate for years, that relationships would be tested, alliances formed, bonds questioned, and trust strained beyond repair. And then, slowly, clarity began to emerge. As Emma took a deep breath, and with courage I had not expected, she told us that Michael had always respected our family, had never intended to hurt anyone, that their love was real, that it had been hidden only out of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of losing the family she loved. And in that moment, a strange calm descended. A silence that was heavy, but also charged with possibility. Because the truth had finally been revealed, no longer hidden in whispers and secrets, and as the minutes passed, Alex, surprisingly, stepped forward, his face a mixture of shock, pain, but also curiosity, and asked questions, demanded explanations, and slowly dialogue replaced chaos. And what had begun as a catastrophic revelation turned into a moment of reckoning, a chance for understanding, for forgiveness, for clarity. And as the hours passed, discussions continued, emotions ebbing and flowing, tears shed, apologies offered, explanations given, and through it all, I watched my daughter, my heart heavy, my mind racing, yet feeling a spark of pride in her bravery, in her honesty. And as the night wore on, resolutions began to form, boundaries set, emotions acknowledged. And while the family remained stunned, fractured in some ways, stronger in others, there was a sense of closure, a sense that the secret, once exposed, had allowed for honesty to take root, for reconciliation to begin. And as I held Emma later that evening after guests had left, after Michael had spoken with the family, after conversations had been had, tears quietly streaming down both our faces, I realized that secrets, no matter how carefully kept, eventually demand to be told, that love, even hidden, has a way of surfacing, and that while this day had been filled with shock, betrayal, and chaos, it had also become a day of truth, courage, and unexpected growth, because in the revelation of her secret love, the family had been forced to confront the complexities of human emotion, the consequences of hidden desires, the importance of honesty, and the need for empathy. And as I reflected on the events sitting alone in my study after the wedding, the house quiet, the echoes of laughter, gasps, and conversations fading, I understood that this day, as dramatic, tumultuous, and unforgettable as it had been, was also a turning point, a lesson in the power of truth, the resilience of family bonds, and the courage required to face the unexpected. And while the shock of her secret love would linger, while stories and whispers would continue, I knew that in exposing the truth, in allowing the light to shine on what had been hidden, we had created the possibility for honesty, healing, and a deeper understanding. A realization that even when a secret threatens to shatter the world around us, the act of revealing it can ultimately lead to growth, reconciliation, and a stronger, more honest foundation for the family. And as I finally closed my eyes that night, exhausted, emotionally spent, yet strangely at peace, I knew that Emma had taught us all a lesson in courage. vulnerability, and the inescapable power of truth, and that no matter how shocking or disruptive the revelation, facing it head-on was always preferable to living in the shadows of secrets. Because in that exposure we found clarity, we found accountability, and above all, we found the unshakable reminder that love, honesty, and family are inextricably intertwined, capable of weathering even the most unexpected storms, and that this day, unforgettable in every sense, would forever be remembered as the day a secret love was exposed. A family confronted the truth, and a new chapter began, raw, honest, and full of possibility.